this segment of the Village in Motion today. I have Uvonne Andoh, who is one of our, in fact, our only program coordinator for our volunteers, right,
Yes.
Uvonne? Well, we're glad to have you with us, and we're going to talk about the volunteer program, right?
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure being here.
Well, you've been with us now for, what, a year?
A year.
Wow.
A year.
And a lot of volunteering's taken place.
Lots of volunteering. Lots of residents just being, enthusiastic with any volunteer opportunities that there are or that I need. So far, so good. So far, so good.
Before we came on air, you were telling me that there's always a need for volunteers.
Absolutely, always. So a couple of the volunteer needs are, one, the Garden Ridge Salon. So in Garden Ridge, just like independent living, we do have a salon there, and we always need volunteers.
What do the volunteers do there?
So in the Garden Ridge Salon, pretty much the responsibilities of our volunteers is taking residents to their appointments and then taking them back. And for the Garden Ridge Salon, it's just a way to kind of release stress off the nurses, because without the volunteers, the nurses also are responsible to bring residents to their appointments and back. But with having our volunteers, it helps a lot. So those are the responsibility of volunteers. And for a thank you to our volunteers, they do receive a complimentary either haircut, shampooing. So not only are you helping us, but we also want to extend that, thank you to you by giving you a complimentary haircut or shampoo.
Do you need a certain number of hours of volunteering with the salon? Or
just an hour.
For an hour, you get a free haircut, huh?
At least an hour a week. At least an hour a week, maybe 4 hours in a month, but an hour a week.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Very, very good.
Absolutely.
So that's something that you need right now, right?
Yes.
Are there other things right now that are in current need that you really are pushing?
Absolutely, always. So we have the Alzheimer's Walk coming up, which will be in September, so September 29th. And we are asking for volunteers. And if you are interested in walking as well, you are more than welcome to sign up with me or Renee Budd, who is the program manager over at Garden Ridge.
Now, is that the one that's going to be held out at Ruston? At
Ruston Town Center, yes. And transportation will be provided to our residents who will be going, as well as free t-shirt. You cannot beat free t-shirt.
Hey, another t-shirt, right?
You cannot beat that. So if you are interested in taking part in the walk or volunteering, please reach out to me or Renee Budd, the program manager.
Okay.
We'll definitely
and is there a time to be there for the?
So the bus will leave in the morning. The time has not been given yet, but I do know that the ceremony is at 2:30 and the walk is at 3 p.m. The time the bus would leave off campus, we're still working on that. So once that time is being provided to me, I'll definitely relay that information to our volunteers.
And then they'll be back in time for dinner.
They'll be back in time for dinner, absolutely.
Very good. All right. And other ones?
Yes. So we also need volunteers for Crestwood Elementary School. I know last year we did have a couple of volunteers and residents who did go over to volunteer, but we're still asking for volunteers if you're interested in volunteering at Crestwood Elementary School. You do not have to have any special skills, just, loving to work with kids, being patient. There is a process to that. The first one is, of course, to fill out the application to volunteer at Crestwood, and then you have to do a fingerprinting and then 2 references, because of course you work in the school system. They have to be mindful of who comes in to volunteer. So if you have any interest, or maybe it's something you did in the past and you still want to do, you can definitely let me know. To volunteer.
And what do people do there? They help read, or?
So pretty much the basic stuff that volunteers do there is helping, with reading, with math, helping in the classroom, so helping the teachers, and also in the library. They do have a library there, so helping in the library and pretty much in the classrooms as well. So whatever help is needed at the school, they try to kind of arrange with the volunteers to assist.
And that's Crestwood is here in Springfield?
It's in Springfield, yes. Not too far from here at all.
And is transportation provided?
Transportation is provided by the Grace Presbyterian Church, so they do come on campus on Wednesdays and take the residents to volunteers to the school and bring them back.
Okay.
So there is transportation.
So if you volunteer, you'd volunteer for the entire day, or do you volunteer for an hour? Or?
So you volunteer for, I believe the volunteers get to the school around 10, and by 12 they should be back on campus in time for lunch.
All right. So it's basically a 2.5 hour commitment?
It is. It is in the classroom.
And that's on Wednesdays?
That's on Wednesdays. That's when the bus do come on campus on Wednesdays. But I do have residents who drive, so they're able to go on any day that works for them and for the teachers.
Yes. So for the next 9 months, there's always that volunteer program,
There is. And I believe this school year, because there have been some changes to the school counselor, this school year volunteering will probably start in October because they want to make sure the teachers are okay in the classroom before they bring volunteers in. So watch out for that date. I'll be giving more information on that.
Sounds great.
Also, I do need volunteers for the GSV Fire Department for their bingo. They're asking for volunteers who can assist them Sundays and Tuesdays from 5 to 10 p.m. But they're willing to work with your schedule as well. So you can commit to an hour, 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever works for you.
And you're talking about the volunteer fire department that's down on Backlake Road,
down
right?
Down the street.
Okay.
Yeah,
so they're the ones that come here on a regular basis quite often.
Absolutely, almost every day. So they do need volunteers to help them with their bingo.
Oh, okay.
And some of the responsibilities of the volunteers would be, calling bingo, floor workers, and also selling tickets.
Oh, okay.
So the money they raise helps them buy the necessary tools and equipment that they need for their department.
Wonderful. With that, that's an evening volunteering, right? And people would just drive down, or do we provide transportation? Or
so when I spoke with the chief over there, he is willing to provide transportation, depending on how many volunteers that we do have. But if you do have a car as well, you can definitely drive down there. And they're always willing to work with your time. So you're not only committed to from 5 to 10 p.m., but anytime that works for you, they will work with you.
Very good. And so again, they would see you about volunteering for that?
Yes, they will see me about volunteering for that, and then I can work with their schedule and then work with the GSV Fire Department as well and give the names to them.
It's not really GSV Fire Department, is it? It's Springfield Volunteer Fire Department.
Yes,
but it's our Green Spring.
Green Spring, yes. It is Springfield, but we just call it GSV Fire Department because they come here a lot. So yes. I also need volunteers in Garden Ridge for our dog therapy program that we do have there. So if you have any dog and you're willing to come over to Garden Ridge and just share your dog with our residents, that will be much appreciated for our residents as well. The requirements for that is, of course, I like to meet the dog to see if they're able to be around residents and other dogs. And then, of course, we'll go through some orientation just for you to be familiar with our residents and Garden Ridge as a whole. And then you fill out a pet packet policy. So it gives you an outline of the policy and guidelines of bringing your pet to Garden Ridge and making sure that the shots of your dogs are up to date. So that's pretty much the process.
And that's on Tuesdays?
It is on Tuesdays at 11 a.m.
So
11 a.m. the group come over to Garden Ridge, and then they go in different neighborhoods to visit residents who love dogs, of course.
What's the liability on the part of the resident for having the dog they're taking over?
So make sure your dog is always on the leash. You have your dog, and your dog is able to be around residents and other dogs. So even though we are also responsible staff members, the dog owners also do have that responsibility to make sure that the dog is always on the leash. So. Yes.
Well, I was just thinking of the fact that a dog may be very nice with one person and may be very nasty with another.
So with that, if you see that, then of course refrain from that. We'll try and find another dog who might be able to, be friendlier with another resident.
Okay. All right. Very good. And are there other opportunities?
So the last thing on my list, of course, is turning in your volunteer hours. We're just talking about that. So if you have any volunteer hours, if it's even from March, April, please still turn them in. I'm still taking hours.
Okay.
And if you do need to volunteer hour forms, you can stop by at your the front desk.
Right.
They should have a copy of that, and just fill that out and turn it in to me.
Okay. And as we were talking before coming on set, it's the fact that you can fill out a whole form for a month or as long as it is before you have to turn it in.
Yes. So whatever works for you works for me. As flexible as I can be. Whatever works for you works for me.
Because what you're looking for is someone that wants to volunteer and to help other people.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Very good. One of the things that concerns me is that with all the volunteers, how in the world do you keep track of everything?
I do. So I do have an Excel sheet that, every month I keep track of the hours. It's just the way it is. I'm able to keep track with an Excel sheet monthly the hours that residents do turn in.
And why do you keep track of it?
I keep track of the hours. It helps our community as well, to see how many active volunteers that we do have, not only for our residents, but external volunteers as well.
Okay.
And at the end, we also like to have our Presidential Service Award, which is to say thank you for the many hours that residents do put in. So it is a way of appreciating our residents, not only one time, but consistently as well. But that is one of our biggest events that we do have for our residents, to say thank you for the many wonderful jobs and works that you do.
Okay. You mentioned the fact of doing something outside of Green Spring.
Yes.
And I volunteer outside of Green Spring.
Yeah.
What do that counts, right?
It does count. It does count. I take hours from, outside, because it is your time that you are putting in, both outside and on campus as well. So if you do volunteer outside as well, please record your hours, and I will count that in.
Okay. And the hours count from the time that you walk out of your apartment until you walk back in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And do you need a description of what people are doing?
I tend to like a little bit of a description of what you do. So giving me both the dates and then a description and then the hours, just to get an idea of what you do as well.
Okay. And you keep track of that also?
I do keep track of all of that.
And I can only imagine the different things all of us volunteer for.
Yeah, it's very diverse.
Okay.
It's a lot.
How many people do we have at the present time who are volunteering? What's your
Currently,
total?
we have over 500, I believe 549 active volunteers. So not all residents do turn in their hours, preference, but we do have over 500, combining both independent living and now external volunteers as well.
Very good. We can always use more, right?
We can always use more.
Very good.
Always.
Well, Uvonne, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for heading up the volunteers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.